Salam alaikum, everyone. I would like to welcome you to another installation of Zoom In on the Halal Metropolis, a project where we're trying to focus on how the Muslim community in the metro area is being affected by the corona virus pandemic. And today I'm very happy to be speaking with Rana Elmir, who is the Deputy Director of ACLU-Michigan. Hi, Rana, how are you doing?
Doing well, I'm good. I'm in good health. I'm staying safe, and thankfully, I have a job that allows me to not only work from home, but also gives me purpose in this time of crisis. But family's good. Everybody's taking this very seriously, staying home. And if my only problem is that I've run out of Kahwa House coffee, I think I'm in pretty good shape.
Absolutely. Yeah, I need to interview Ibrahim. I spoke to him just when he had the restaurant on the safe distancing thing. He put in place, taking out half of his tables. That was before he was actually closed down. So I'll have to check in with him and see what his plans are. But well, anyway, so I'm glad that you're safe. I'm glad your family is safe. And like you, I so appreciate having a job right now because it keeps me distracted. I think we're really very privileged in that situation. But there are a lot of people in Michigan who are not safe and not protected. And I know that the ACLU is doing everything that you can to try and fight for vulnerable people here in Michigan. So why don't you share with us what it is you've been doing?
Sure, absolutely. And I think these are unprecedented times, unprecedented for both our government and then our communities as a whole. And I think a lot of folks have been talking about Mr. Rogers and, look for the helpers. I think what the ACLU is trying to do in this moment is to be a helper and to ensure that no one is left behind in the government's response to COVID-19. And so we've been working on restoring water and ensuring that the government, whether at a local level or a state level, is restoring water for folks. We've been working to ensure that our voting rights and our elections are safe and are secure for all. And we've also been working on ensuring that our jails, prisons, and immigration detention are safe. And that we're drastically reducing these populations. I think you and I, Sally, have a lot of control over how we react and how do we respond to this crisis. We can stay home, we can wash our hands vigorously and repeatedly, we use hand sanitizer. However, of course, in facilities such as jails, prisons, and immigration detention, which is in our jails, folks there don't have the same privilege that we do and are really at the mercy of jail administrators or corrections officers. And so what we're trying to do in two areas. One is we're trying to decarcerate our jails and our prisons because there is no cure for COVID-19. There is no vaccine. And public health experts are telling us that the two most effective tools we have are good hygiene practices and social distancing. These are two things that are virtually impossible in our jails and in our prisons. And so those are the areas that we're largely focused on right now.
I read this morning, I believe it was today, I think it was in Debbie Dingle's update. She's been doing a daily update that she said that the state prisons are now, the prisoners are going to start making masks for the guards, for the corrections officers, but the prisoners themselves aren't being allowed to wear masks. I guess that kind of makes sense if you think about the what the job of the prison is. But still, that really shocked me. First off, that the officers are not already wearing face masks. And then secondly, that if these are like vulnerable people who are in prison, they need the masks too.
Absolutely. I mean, you're highlighting so many issues that are wrong with just the way we treat people who are incarcerated, both from the labor practices. Making masks is not the only thing that we force folks who are incarcerated to do. But you're also speaking to some of the stories that we're hearing from the inside. Prisons and jails tend to be unsanitary. Folks are living in these unsanitary conditions. You have, in Michigan at least, there are some estimates that a quarter of the jail population in Michigan have serious mental health issues. And then you have a lot of folks who are in our jails and in our prisons who haven't even been, or I'm sorry, in our jails specifically, who haven't even been convicted of a crime. You know, you can look at our arrest numbers in the last 10 years. Between 2008 and 2018, arrests dropped by 22%. Our jail populations in that time skyrocketed. And many people, including, I think, close to 50% or a little more than 50% of our jail population is there because they haven't been able to pay their bail, their cash bail to get out. These are the folks that are in our jails right now, and these are the folks who are most vulnerable, who are sleeping in very close quarters, who are still going to communal meals, and then on the other side of that, you have immigration detention, which is currently in three of our jail facilities, actually four of our county jail facilities. And those populations are also at risk. They're in civil detention in the jails, and they too cannot socially distance. They too are not being given hand sanitizer. We're hearing stories again of communal meals. In Monroe County Jail, for instance, they're in dormitories, right? And so 50 to 60 individuals are in dormitories, just a few feet from one another, sleeping. And
sharing
restrooms. Until last week, many of the guards had not been wearing masks, and we're hearing reports that there's inconsistencies there. And so that's why actually last week we have filed several lawsuits against ICE Immigration and Customs Enforcement to try to get individuals released from immigration detention.
Have you had any luck with these cases?
We have, in fact. There are several private immigration attorneys who filed similar cases. We are filing, unfortunately, we have to do this essentially like one person at a time. There's no way to file a class action lawsuit to release folks from immigration detention in this way. And we're dealing with an enforcement agency like ICE, which tends to not be particularly transparent, does not have a good human rights record, as you saw through conditions in detention and family separation. And so in just last week, we had two of our clients released. One gentleman in particular, Mr. Amr Toma, who has been in the U.S. for over a decade from Iraq. He has been in detention and talks about some of these conditions that I've shared. And so thankfully he's now safe at home, and we're looking to do the same thing for several others, and we'll continue to try in earnest to get as many people released from immigration detention as well as from our jail and prison population as possible.
So how are you identifying these individuals?
That's actually something that is very tricky. So we're working with their personal immigration attorneys, but not everyone has an immigration attorney. It is not like immigration detention is not the same as criminal detention, in which everyone in criminal detention or in the criminal legal system is entitled to an attorney. You hear that, you watch Law and Order, you hear those Miranda rights. That's not the same in immigration. And so, one, we're looking to get this information from individual immigration attorneys themselves. We're also looking to families. We're looking to organizations like the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center. But even for those who are viewing this, who are familiar with a family member or friend who might be in immigration detention, we want to hear from you. The data that we're getting from ICE is because of ICE's track record with transparency, we're not quite sure those numbers are consistent with the reality. And we want to know exactly where people are housed and the conditions in that particular jail. And so folks can reach out to me, to you, and we'll put them in touch with the team who can serve them. Specifically right now, we're working on getting folks who are medically vulnerable to be released. The CDC has set out very specific guidelines around incarceration with regards to medical vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And so that's the first step, but I can tell you that is not the last step. We need to, again, drastically reduce the number of people who are in immigration detention in Michigan.
What about minors who are being held in immigration detentions? They might not, with older people, it's probably much easier to document their medical histories if they have conditions that make them especially vulnerable. But with children, unless they have asthma or some sort of obvious condition like that, it might not be so obvious. What's being done to get children out of detention?
So so those children would not be in the same jail facilities. They would be they'd either be with family members or perhaps in foster care homes or working.
We're not detaining children at the border here or anything like that. So, okay. So that's,
I don't believe so.
At one point they were talking about bringing people up
yes.
here, and I just wasn't sure if it had actually gone through or not.
Yeah, that would be a totally different system. However, we also know the way coronavirus is acting, right? What we knew of 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago about who was most susceptible, mm-hmm. We are seeing perfectly healthy, younger people who were not originally in that high risk or vulnerable category, mm-hmm. also succumbing to this disease. So in my mind, everyone is vulnerable. And when you add to that detention and those close quarters and those unhygienic conditions in our facilities, it's basically a tinderbox at that point.
Yeah, and I'm also, I noticed that in Detroit and in Wayne County, and even here in Washtenaw County to a certain extent, you saw that some of the first people to start getting sick, it's obvious that this was spreading in the law enforcement community. It was the police, it was the sheriff's department. These were the people, they were themselves spreading it. Unintentionally, obviously. But to me, when I hear that there was like a party that some retired person from the sheriff's department had that he has every year, and a lot of officers went to that, and it's an annual event, a happy event that they have, but a lot of people got sick after attending that event. And anyway, so I've been trying to piece together how it has been spreading in this community, and it's obvious that it's spreading in the law enforcement community, which means that anyone who's encountering the law enforcement community is also especially vulnerable. So in addition to all the reasons that you've already stated about them being in these unsafe, unsanitary places where they have no privacy and where they have the communal meals and in some cases communal bathroom facilities, the people that they're encountering who are supposed to be protecting them are very often carriers themselves. So it's just been very frustrating to watch, and I'm glad that you're doing so much work on the de-incarceration. This is a term I had not heard before, de-incarceration, but I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad to have that in my vocabulary. Well, is there anything else that you want to share with us that the ACLU is doing?
The last thing I'll say is obviously everybody should be staying at home and washing their hands, all of the things that the CDC and other public health experts are telling us to do. But one thing we can all do for our communities right now is to contact our clerk and ask how we can get on the permanent absentee ballot list so that we can get a ballot, so we can vote from home, so that we are not putting ourselves at risk, poll workers at risk. Obviously, not everyone can vote from home, even through an absentee ballot. And in Michigan, because of a ballot initiative from a couple of years ago, Promote the Vote, we have no reason absentee. You don't have to have a reason to be able to access a ballot from home. And so you just have to contact your clerk be put on that permanent absentee list and vote from home.
That's a great, yeah, I go and vote absentee. I do it all the time, so you don't have to wait in line, but that it hadn't even occurred to me that there was a permanent list. So I'm definitely going to get my name on the list. Well, listen, I thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. And I thank you. I'm so glad to know that you're there doing what you're doing, trying to protect the rights of all of us here in Michigan. Thank you. I'm also glad that you're taking care of yourself and your family and staying home and being safe. So continue to do that. And I look forward to talking to you in person, face to face, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Sally. Be well.
Thanks, Jenna. Bye, everybody.